Okay, for this project, we're going to use Boolean operations in order to create a bear logo, a vector bear logo from a bear photograph. So what we're going to do is we're going to download this image. We're going to download it to our October folder. Just right click on it, go to Save Image As. And then in Grab Designer, we're going to go to Social Media, and then we're going to go to Instagram Post 1080 by 1080. It will create a page or artboard for us. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and then press the space bar and left click to pan down. You'll see that I have my rulers on, and you can turn those on and off by going to View and then Canvas and then Show Rulers to turn them on and off. Now what we're going to do is bring that bear photo in by going to File, Import, and then Place Image. So you'll see that the bear image ends up in the middle of my screen once I select it from my October folder, as you see right here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is lock this layer. So I'm just going to hover my mouse in the layers panel, and it says 2010 brown bear. Click that lock icon. Now if I click it, I cannot move it. What we're going to do is we're going to take the ellipse tool from the geometric shapes, and I'm going to adjust my fill setting to 80% or 70%, just below 100%, so that I can create a shape on top of my reference image. So what I want to do is create a circle, as I'm doing right here, or really it's an ellipse because it's not a perfect circle, that matches the outline of the bear. And you can still sort of see the bear in between. Notice that if I change my fill down to 70%, I can see more of it. So just enough that you can still see the reference image below. So I've got sort of half of the face or the head right here. I'm going to add the ear next. So I can just sort of click and drag like so. I'm just using basic geometric shapes in order to sort of reconstruct this animal. With the transparency overlapping itself, you'll sort of see where it's overlapping because it's sort of 2 layers of 75% transparency. And I'm going to add one additional oval that's going to end up being sort of like the bottom of the head, and or sort of like, I don't know, the hair, the fur sort of area that's hanging off of the bear's chin. So I'll grab my ellipse tool, and I'm going to actually end up going like this. It might look a little bit weird right now, but once I position it right about here, I think it's going to work for us the way that we want. Okay, so now I have these 3 ellipses together. I'm going to select all of them by clicking and dragging, or I could click on each one individually while holding the Shift key. And I'm going to go to my compound shapes tool and go to Union. So that will turn them all into a single object. But I need to go one further step, is right click and then convert to path. I don't want Grab to remember that it was 3 separate ellipses. I want to sort of turn it into one unique path like so. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle tool, and at the halfway point of the bear, not the geometric halfway point of the selection, I'm going to create a rectangle that's on top of this shape that I have created, and you're going to see why I do that in just a second. So I'm going to move it right about, that's too far, right about here. So now I'm going to select these 2 objects, all right, so the one behind and the one on top, and I'm going to go to subtract. And so it's going to subtract the rectangle from the shape below it, as you see right here. All right, so now I'm going to right click and convert this to a path. And now the next step is going to be to duplicate this. And I can do that by holding the Alt or Option key and clicking and left clicking and dragging like so. Or I could just select it and then press Edit Copy or Control C. Control V to paste. All right, I'm going to right click on this and go to Transform Flip Horizontal like so. And so now I've got my 2 halves of this design, and I'm going to scroll in here. Now there might be an issue that comes up, and we'll sort of see what happens. I want these right next to each other with no space between, and I'm going to select both of them by shift clicking again. You can see I've got this nice little bear shape, and I'm going to go to this compound object union option to unite these together. All right, so now you'll see that there's no path up the middle. If I were to add a border to this, you'd see that that border goes all the way around. If for some reason there's a border up the middle, that means that they weren't overlapping at all. So you just sort of snug them up a little bit together and then try to reunite them. So I'm going to boost the border up to 15, and you'll see that I'm going to change the position of the border to the center. And so you'll see like the path is in the middle right there. So this is sort of a fairly common technique that you'll see in sort of like mascot logo design, vector graphic sort of design. We got the start of our bear. So I'm going to move this off to the side right now, just using my selection tool. And I'm going to click on my fill color right here, my eyedropper, and I'm going to sample a color brown from my actual bear. So I can actually pull colors from the bear that I'm designing. And I'm actually going to do the same for the stroke. If you get this message, go ahead, hit yes. I've already done it, so you don't have to, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to click the color right here to choose a border color from the bear, and it's sort of like this purpley sort of dark color right in here, just a subtle change. We'll reference that a little bit later as well. All right, I'm actually going to stretch this down a little bit just to make it a little bit taller. You know, there's really no real strict rules that we have to follow. We can just have fun with it. You could also experiment with the position of the border. You could see what it would look like on the outside. You could see what it would look like on the inside. Again, it's sort of up to you how you want it to look. I actually sort of like it on the inside, so I'm going to keep it there. Next step, I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to create a rectangle that's about the size of this sort of nose piece, sort of light brown tan color like so. And if I switch to the Subselect tool, I get these little orange circles, and I'm going to click and drag these, and it's going to allow me to create this rounded rectangle like so. I'm going to right click on this, convert to path, and now with my Subselect tool, I'm going to click in the top corner. I'm going to hold shift and right arrow on my keyboard just to move it over to create the shape that I'm seeing. Same thing here. Subselect, click on just the one anchor point right here. You can see that it's solid while the rest are hollow, and then shift left arrow twice. And so now I've created this. Let me use my selection tool. I've created this part of the nose, more or less. I'll use my eyedropper tool to select this actual color, and I'm on my way here. All right, so now I'm going to basically repeat that process, but for this part of the nose, and I'm going to create a rectangle that's approximately the same size, and then I will use my Subselect tool in order to make it a rounded rectangle like so. I will right click on it and convert to path, click on the anchor point, hold the shift key, and then right arrow like so, and then use my Subselect to click that anchor point, and then shift left arrow key on my keyboard like so. And then I might use my selection tool just to make this thing just a little bit bigger to match as it does. All right, so now I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to select the color of the nose right in here. I want that to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to reselect and get sort of this, let's see, where do I want that middle part? Right in here. All right, cool. So now I'm going to place this in the middle of this shape that I have created. And here's where you might want to use rulers. So if I go to View, Canvas, Show Rulers, and I click in the ruler, I can bring down a guide. So I could line these up precisely. So I can add multiple guides, just so I get like the height of everything, exactly where I want it to be. And again, we're sort of creating like an approximation, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If I select both of these shapes, I can center the inside one on the outside one. Okay, so now I have to create two circles for the nostrils, and I have to create a mouth shape. I'm going to move these guides off of my document and grab my ellipse tool. And so here I'm just going to create another circle like so. The fill color I'm going to select from the inside of the nostril right here, so it's really dark, and I can drag it over to here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can get my positioning just right. You might have to resize as you go, but let me get that right about here. I'm just going to sort of eyeball it, and then I will duplicate it by using my Option left click drag technique. And then I'll select both of these, right click to group them, group selection, and then hold the shift key to select this inner or outer part of the nose, and then center these all up. All right, now I have to just create this little mouthpiece. And so the way that I'm going to do that is by creating an oval like so. And I will create another oval that represents sort of the bottom part of the mouth like so. And I'm going to center these up on each other, and then I'm going to scoot this one down a little bit. And so I'm going to select both of these and then use my compound intersect option right here. And so that's going to only keep the parts that intersect. I'll right click, convert to path, and then I'm going to make this the same color as my nostrils right here, and then position it underneath, centered up like so, and sort of position it as such. All right, so now I can take this selection, I'm going to right click and group it, and that will allow me to move it into the bear head that I'm creating right here. Now all I have to do is create some eyes, and then we're going to call the logo portion of this done. So I'll come right here into my ellipse tool, and I'm just going to create a little eye holding the shift key. I'm going to go for just little nice round eyes, and I will click. I'm going to make these the same color as the nostrils. So I will click on the eyedropper with that object selected, and then click right there. Okay, with my move tool, I will zoom on out and position it just outside here. And if it's too small, which it clearly is, I can use my selection tool, and I can simply resize it to whatever I need to do. So the reference, again, it's a reference. We're not trying to, replicate it exactly. Instead, we're just trying to take keys, design cues, in order to create this design. So I'm going to go ahead and position this right here. I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to line them up relative to each other. I will Command or Control G to group them. Select this object to make sure that it's centered on it. And that is where we will stop for the logo portion using Boolean options. Good job.